Okay, today's video is on Henrietta. Henrietta is a small village in Morrison's Cove, and right here on the map shows Henrietta, and this is from 1873. You can see the railroad came in from Martinsburg all the way down into Henrietta. And the reason why why they sent a railroad to Henrietta was Henrietta really had a lot of iron ore rock, and that was a big contributing fact of why Henrietta became a really booming little industrial village, was because of the iron ore mining. And Henrietta itself has a lot of amazing history with the people, the village, the community. They had a lot going on, and it's a really nice area today. But in the past, there was a lot of industry, mostly centered around the iron ore mining. And during the late 1800s, iron ore was really booming, not only for local iron furnaces, but they were shipping the iron ore on the railroad to Pittsburgh, Johnstown, all over that needed iron ore. Morrison's Cove had amazing supplies of iron ore, and today in this video I'd like to share where they were mining their iron ore around Henrietta. Right here is the ore hole, this little spot right here, and right here is another spot they were mining called the Falkner shaft. Down here is some more iron ore mines, and we come over here, there's some iron mines here, there's some iron mines here, and over here there's some iron mines, and up in Millerstown there's some iron mines. So there was a lot of spots they were mining iron ore. So let's go take a look at some of those sites today. Just to share some of the books and publications I get some of my research from. I look into the past authors, and find a lot of the information I'm looking for. This book, a lot of you might have seen, was called by David Adams, and it's a history of Henrietta, and I believe he wrote this back in the 1940s, and he does an incredible job of explaining the history of Henrietta. And he talks about the mining in this book, and the mining sites line up correctly with this book. This is the Pennsylvania Second Geological Survey book of Blair County, and there's a lot of mining information in Henrietta and Morrison's Cove in this book. Some other information that helps me out with some Henrietta research is another book by David Adams, talks about Henrietta in here, and then another former Morrison's Cove author, Milton Burgess, talks a lot about Henrietta in this book. So these are some of my sources that I look into some history of Henrietta and Morrison's Cove, as well as some work, Bygone Days by Ellis Snowberger. She does some wonderful history, amazing history, that she shared in her Bygone Days of the Cove. So I kind of look into the past to try to learn about these former sites. The center of Henrietta lies the Henrietta ore hole. This is the main mining site of Henrietta. The railroad came directly to this ore hole. They were mining iron ore here up until about the early 1900s, whenever they hit water and the ore hole filled in. Here's an amazing picture of the iron ore washer above the ore hole. You can see the above tram road where the dinky carts would get inclined up to the top of the ore washer, where they would clean the iron ore rock, and the rock would go out on the railroad. From the 1870s until the early 1900s, Henrietta was putting their iron ore rock on the railroad, shipping it to Johnstown and Pittsburgh. Henrietta was really supplying industrial iron ore rock all around Pennsylvania. The railroad came right to Henrietta. Henrietta was really a booming industrial village. Let's take a look at some former pictures donated by Mr. Kaufman and Carol Replogo to show us some of the former glory of Henrietta in the past. Enjoy the pictures. Okay, here in the Geological Survey book, there was another book with that had all the maps of all the areas of Blair County, and they would mark the iron ore veins in red. Okay, so here's Henrietta, here's Leathercracker, and what you see here is the veins of iron ore. And it's pretty simple here. It comes down here, and then we have another vein over here. So this would be the main Henrietta ore hole would be around here, and the railroad came right through here. Sorry, we got the ore hole here. We got the vein of iron running this way. So along this vein, we have a shaft over here called the Falkner shaft, and then we get over here and we have lots of different iron ore on the former Hoover farm, and there's a shaft called McAllister shaft, and the Hoover mines were all situated in here. The Falkner shaft, the main ore hole in Henrietta, and we come over here. If we come back around Henrietta towards Leathercracker, we turn up Henrietta Road. Actually, sorry. Here we come up this way towards Henrietta Road. There's another vein of iron right here, and this was the Stonerook Schoolhouse. This is known as the Schoolhouse Mines. Right about here, on Bud Chonka's property, we found another mine here, and all these mines were owned and operated by Cambria Iron. Cambria Iron was a company put together by Peter Schoenberger before he died in 1854. A lot of his past land holdings and would be then taken over by Cambria Iron, which was a massive company that he formed a partnership with some men up in Johnstown, and they would take over lots of mining sites and iron furnaces, and they built a pretty big operation. Now here is the map of Henrietta in 1873. This gives us a good kind of we have the main area of Henrietta here, and down along the bottom here we have the Henrietta ore hole. We have a mine shaft here at the Falkner shaft. Down here we have the Hoover farm, McAllister shaft, and then over here we have the Schoolhouse mines. We have another mining site here owned by Cambria Iron on Bud Chonka's property. So you see where the vein is here and the vein is here. It lines up with these mappings from the survey. These maps were put together around 1876, so some good reference points here. Okay, we're at the main hole at the Henrietta ore hole. This was the main mine number 1 at Henrietta. It took a lot of iron ore out of this site, and up on the hill up here, they would pull the ore out of the mine using a series of trams being pulled up by cables, pulling the dinky carts out, and they had their own iron ore washers at the top of the hill. The railroad came right along here, and they would ship iron ore all over the state here, and they say this ore pit was about 100 foot deep. This was operated by the Cambria Iron Company. Okay, here's the geology report of mine number 1. Here's a map of the ore hole, and where I was filming, I'm assuming I was standing over here, and along the bank here is the tram dinky incline that went up to the ore washer. So you can see the incline that came out of the ore pit, and in this big large open pit, there's a few mine shafts that they sunk, that they would go down and mine iron ore underneath. So they went down, right here it says 600 feet long, 200 feet wide, and 60 foot deep, which I realized I was wrong about the 100 feet deep. So 60 feet deep. So this is a pretty big ore pit, and you can see there's outcrops of limestone as well in this ore pit. There's actually a vein of an area they were quarrying limestone right outside the pit here. And down here, it says the mine differs from many in Morrison's Cove. It shows no sand, no sandstone, no flint, no rock of any kind but blue limestone. So it's pretty interesting. This area of iron ore was surrounding limestone and probably some clay. So that's a little bit about the main cut, mine number 1. 60% iron was found here, which was still very good. They considered iron ore to be usable above like 35%, so that was considered a pretty good iron ore. And you can see this analysis was made by Mr. Morrell of the Cambria Iron Company. Along the east side of the mine number 1, you can see the geological report. You go down about 12 feet through clay and limestone, and then you come pretty much lower than that. You're running into the ore, the iron ore rock. Mine number 2 is the Falkner shaft. The Falkner shaft is situated 400 yards south of the main ore hole. The Falkner shaft was 400 yards south of the main ore hole on present-day site of Eugene Stauffer's farm. The Falkner shaft was a vertical mine shaft that went down 153 feet. They would hoist and remove the iron ore to the surface using cables and a hoist system. When the miners were working, they hit water, and it flooded out the mine, leaving track, car, and tools underground to this day. The mine caved in. Today, the mine is pushed shut, and it's farmed over now. Okay, we're about 400 yards south of the main ore hole here in Henrietta, and this is the former site of the Falkner shaft. This has been filled in and farmed over, but what we see here is a nice a rim that goes around the mining site, and there sat a large vertical mine shaft that went down 153 feet deep, and then they would find the vein of iron, and they would pull the iron out with probably cables and hoist systems. And over here you can see a raised area. That's the spoil pile of where they were bringing out the spoils, but a rail line ran right across the main ore hole over to this Falkner shaft. So they took 8,000 tons of iron ore out of this. Underneath the ground there's still equipment, dinky carts, railroad, and tools that supposedly got flooded out, and they left it here, and it's been filled in since. So another documented iron mining site here in Henrietta. Okay, we're standing on the spoil pile here, and you can see a big chunk of iron ore and a lot of black slate and clay as documented in the book. And this is the spoil pile, and you can see a rip and the shaft is in this field here. It's been filled in over the years, but it went down 153 feet. And this part of Henrietta is where the most extensive iron mining was going on. About 400 yards that way is the main ore hole. We have the Falkner shaft. About 900 yards that way we have the McAllister shaft and various underground and open cut mining. Then we go over to this part of Henrietta. Up in that corner we have the schoolhouse mines. We have another mine over here. So this is kind of the main sites there mining the iron ore. 900 yards south of the Falkner shaft was the McAllister shaft. The McAllister shaft was owned by Cambria Iron Company, and let's go check it out. The McAllister shaft is located where the circle is, on the present-day site of the Sollenberger farm. Okay, we found the McAllister shaft. That is a deep hole. That's got to be about 15 foot deep down to the bottom. And if you see how wide it is, This is definitely the McAllister shaft that was said to go 100 feet down, and then it would follow the vein of iron ore that way to the Hoover farm. And there's a test hole right here, and there's also a drift mine, a monkey drift mine right here. So they put a tunnel drift in here that went horizontally to follow a vein of iron ore. This one is what they call a deep mine, vertical mine shaft that went straight down 100 feet, and then it would go horizontally, and they would raise and lower the iron ore out of the mine using cables and hoist systems. You definitely don't want to go down in there. Okay, this is a test hole. We see these all the time. They were testing. What the difference is between a test hole and a vertical shaft is this. You can see how much wider it is. And in our mine book, it said this went down 100 feet to reach iron ore. And then they would run a drift out vertically when they found the vein of iron ore. So, incredible history here in Morrison's Cove. The miners in Henrietta, they did something that we're not used to today. And you just have to wonder about how they did it. And here's a monkey drift mine. So they came down in and tunneled into the hill. That's a drift. And this is a vertical shaft mine. It's been a great day out here in Henrietta. And today we successfully documented all the iron ore mining sites in Henrietta. And I'd like to show you one that was really nice to find. This was a vertical shaft. Went down 100 feet where they hit a vein of iron ore, and they went that way to get the iron. So they would extract the iron through cables and hoist and buckets, or however they hoisted the iron out. This is named the McAllister shaft. A man named Archibald McAllister got his roots around the Springfield furnace with the Royers. He came out to this village here where they started the mining. His wife was named Henrietta. He came out here and met another man. His wife's name was Henrietta, and they decided to name the village Henrietta. So that's how Henrietta got its name for the village here. Was the husband of Henrietta, and they named the shaft after him. So this is the McAllister shaft. His wife was named Henrietta. So this is a deep mine, went down 100 feet. There's a drift mine over there, and 250 yards south would be the Hoover mines that we just documented. 400 yards north would be the Falkner shaft. 900 yards would be the Falkner shaft. 400 yards would be the ore hole. Iron ore mining site number 4, the Hoover mine. The Hoover mine was located on the former Fred Hoover farm, and this farm today belongs to the Sullenberger family. Eric and I today found the open cut, which is around 200 feet long, and we also found a drift mine. It was said that Cambria Iron sold the iron ore at the Hoover mine to the Riddlesburg iron furnace. We are at the Hoover mine. It's the present-day site of Sullenberger's farm. And you see a test hole right here. And here's the entryway to the drift mine. This was supposed to have 1 to 3 drift mines here at the Hoover mine. And here it is, going right into the hillside. Everything's been pushed shut. A tree grew up. But you can see this natural cut that came around here. The large spoil pile right beside it. Here's an old drift mine. So it looks like they came out here. Might have been a little tram road right here. Entryway to the mine. Here's a test hole beside the mine. Here's one more documented mine here at the Hoover mines in Henrietta. Okay, we are in the Hoover cut. Interesting mine here we got. They said it's about 200 feet long, and it kind of stops in about right here. Looks like there's an entryway, and they mined this all out in here, back into that wall. And you can see a lot of sandstone up there, but there was a concentrated vein of iron right here. And little bit deeper spots they were digging here and there where the water settled. Brown hematite iron ore. And looks like over here they dug a shaft and went under the ground. That's a underground vertical mine shaft. So they probably went down another 100 feet and did a horizontal drift mine when they reached iron. We're at the one end of the Hoover cut here, and we're noticing a lot of sandstone rock. And this vein was probably exhausted of the iron ore. The iron ore is cleaned up very well in here. So they cleaned it out as best as possible and took what was available. Looking on to Henrietta here, we're up in the woods here, and up there is the Hoover mines. And this was the Hoover farm back in the 1880s. And right here is an old Hoover family cemetery and some other people that died up and were buried here. David Hoover. Elizabeth Hoover. Here's mining site number 5. It's known as the Schoolhouse Mines. This site was situated above the former Stone Brook Schoolhouse. This mining site had a small open cut mine, which there's a house built in it right now, and there's about 3 or 4 to 5 underground drift mines. Okay, we're here in Henrietta at the site known as the Schoolhouse Mines. There's an impression here where it looks like they were going underground. And we come over here and we see a spoils pile right here. Right across from that spoils pile, there's a little hole going into the ground here. A lot of iron ore rock all around. This might have been an underground drift mine right here. Here's another hole right here, which I believe we found a mine right here. Yep, this would have been a mine. You see it goes straight in the hillside, and there's the hole. I think that's a mine. Drift mine. Iron ore, Henrietta. Brown hematite. Here's another mine. You can see that big hole in the ground there. Like I said, this would have been a big opening at one point, but it's been pushed shut, and you can see it settling. There's a mine. Oh wow. Yep. Yep, that's definitely a mine. Well, there's the hole there. These old drift mines are pushed shut, pretty big. A lot of iron ore around it. So they were going underground, of course, to get the iron, and the site is full of them. Here's a hole right here. This could have been the entryway. A lot of times on a drift mine, it would drift into the hillside. So we got an opening here. And we got a bigger opening here, which either or could have just been the ground opening up. So there's looks like 3 or 4 different mines here that went under the ground that we found. So a lot of iron ore here. Here at the Schoolhouse mine site, this bank here, this was all a big open cut that has been said to have been filled in with one mine shaft there, mine shaft there, and then mine shafts up over the hill. Just walking around the property, we find lots of iron ore. Pretty heavy vein of iron ore. Henrietta had lots of different areas they were mining, and this is one of them. Okay, we're on, right here would be Henrietta Road. This is the area known as the Schoolhouse Mines that we were just walking on. We found a bunch of mines. In my geology book, 400 yards south takes you right down to Bud Chonka's property, where we located the other mine that was documented in the book. And right here is Stone Rook Cemetery and the former Stone Rook Schoolhouse, which is this house that's been remodeled. But that is the old Stone Rook Schoolhouse. So everything's lines up here. 400 yards south would be the mine on Bud Chonka's property. And here's the Schoolhouse mines. Just a lot of iron ore rock here in this pile. Okay, I'd like to thank the Ryan Stauffer and his family for letting me come and check out their property. Beautiful property. It's nice to see an old mining site reclaimed and in use again. Beautiful property, and really interesting, all the underground mines they had here on this property. So okay, we just checked out the Schoolhouse mines. Here in the geology survey book, talks about the Schoolhouse mines, and it talks about all the different shafts and where they did the mining and what they had going on here. But they also talk about the man that was mining here, Mr. Morris from the Cambria Iron Company. Mr. Morris shafted on the same ore-bearing clay deposit about 400 yards south of the Stone Rook Schoolhouse. Along the flank of the ridge, he found good iron ore, and this iron ore crop is followed for about 1 mile. So this vein went from the Schoolhouse mines south and kind of stopped, and we found that mine here on Bud Chonka's property. Okay, so if you look at the map here, here's the ore hole, and here's the Falkner shaft, McAllister, Hoover mines. Then we come back over to where we just were, the Schoolhouse mines here. 400 yards south puts you right here at present-day site of Bud Chonka's property. And if you look at this, CICO, Cambria Iron Company, they own this property. And Bud Chonka had no idea that there was a mine on his property. And we found it when we went there the other day. So let's show you that mine right now. Mining iron ore in Henrietta was a big thing, and not only for the iron ore that was at the ore hole, but around Henrietta there's lots of iron ore, and that's good quality brown hematite. So I came up to Bud Chonka's property and to meet with him. He's a former history teacher, and I found this on the way up, and I went to inspect, and he didn't realize that he has an old ore mine on his property. And you can see like all these piles right here. These are all spoil piles that came right out of that mine shaft up there. So you have all these random piles of waste rock and, you know, junk rock, no good rock that they mined out of this drift mine. There's piles of rock all through here. Piles of rock. Now this iron mine is not found on any maps that I found, but this could have been a mine that was independently owned by a farmer during the time, and they found iron ore and they sold it. But you can see right here, this is all filled in between this group of trees. It's about, if I'm standing down here, it's about 7 foot tall to that top of the entrance right there. This has all been pushed shut. So a typical drift mine would go horizontally right into the vein of iron ore. And you can see how this was all filled in. And right here is the top of the mine, right down in there. So this would have been an old drift mine where they would go in and get brown hematite iron ore for the local iron furnaces. You can see little areas where it's kind of eroding. Very cool. Here's some of the nice brown hematite iron ore I found right outside of this mine here. So you don't know how far this went under the ground. It could have went 40, 50 feet, could have went 100. I'm guessing by the size of the spoil piles out here, it wasn't that deep. There's spoil piles all through there, but it might have only went 50, 60 feet in there. Henrietta, ore mine. Thank you very much for watching this video on Henrietta. I had a lot of fun making this video and researching the iron mining. I'll be writing a book in the future here called The Iron Ore and Clay Mining in the Morrison's Cove. Henrietta will have a big chapter in the book, so there'll be a lot more to add to that book when it comes out. To anyone from Henrietta and Morrison's Cove, or anyone watching, I hope you really enjoyed this video. Hope you found a lot of great heritage here. Maybe you have some history here too. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it, and I enjoy sharing the history that I learn about here in Morrison's Cove. Thanks for watching.